Speech Pitch by Iska Sak.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Speech Pitch. I'm Pascal Hacker.
I'm Mohammed Mosuily, and today we have with us a guest, Monica, a fellow Iskasak member who is here today to share information about Australia and Sydney, the host city of Interspeech 2026.
Good day, guys. I'm Monica, and I'm thrilled to be here and help the audience to prepare mentally and physically for our trip to Interspeech in Sydney. So I spent 3 months in Sydney 6 years ago doing an internship at the Marx Institute with Professor Chris Davis, who is actually organizing Interspeech this year. So I'm very, very excited to hopefully going back this year.
Very cool, yeah. And welcome to Speech Pitch. That qualifies you quite well, I guess, to share some information, some knowledge about Australia. And we're really looking forward to the conversation today. So we are having this episode in order to help our audience to decide what to prepare for Interspeech, mentally and physically. And a small initial fun fact. So Monica and I were both colleagues together at the Audiering GmbH in Germany. So it's very, very cool to have you over here also as a colleague and as we heard, very qualified guest. I also spent 1 month in Australia, like traveling through Australia, basically like 10 years back. So I guess Monica might be the most up-to-date source for our information here, but at least I enjoyed it, and I think it sounds also like Monica had some fun there, so it's going to be very cool to go to Australia together to enjoy Interspeech.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm very happy to be here. And today I'm going to share fun facts about Australia and Sydney, but also tell you how you can travel from the airport to the conference venue. We will talk about the weather in Sydney, what to pack, food, culture, and fun activities. And we will then also mention Australian slang and accents, so you get an idea of what to expect.
Absolutely, yeah. It's really cool. Like last year we were still in the lower countries, in the Netherlands, in Dutch, and now we're even going down under. And yeah, like we're really looking forward. Australia is a beautiful place, and I think it's really, really cool to visit there. But I mean, the first thing to keep in mind is, I guess, it's quite far away. From the US and from Europe, you're looking at least a 20-hour and a longer journey. So let's see how we can best prepare for that.
Right, our first tip is to pack a neck cushion, but buy it before you get to the airport to save some money. And check your hard drive space. You'll need to pack many movies to watch.
Yeah, and Australia in general, it's quite a crazy concept if you think about it. It's the only country in the world that it's spanning an entire continent, basically. And Sydney is also its oldest city. So, I mean, there's the colonial history of Sydney, but also the area around Sydney. It's home to the Gadigal people. And these are around for 65,000 years already. So quite some special feature here.
I have a question about the colors. I see a lot of green and gold in sports, but the flag is blue, red, and white. How come?
Yeah, that's a good point. So green and gold are the colors of the national flower. It's called golden wattle. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. But that's a symbol of resilience. So this is why the mismatch in colors.
Additionally, like as we said, Sydney is where the Interspeech will be hosted. But if you think of the capital Australia, like, I mean, in terms of cities, Sydney and Melbourne come to mind. These are the biggest city in the country, but the capital, I think this is now well-known trivia fact, is actually Canberra. So historically, Sydney and Melbourne basically could not agree on which of these two cities should become the capital, so they choose a more neutral option. But as we said, Interspeech will be held at Sydney itself, which is maybe a good transition to the next section, which is about Sydney.
In our Rotterdam episode, we called it a playground for architects. Does Sydney hold up?
Yeah, absolutely. So Rotterdam was about experimental modernism. Sydney is really also about iconic landmarks. You have the Sydney Opera House, which everyone knows how it looks. It's really a masterpiece. It's covered with over 1 million ceramic tiles. You also have the Sydney Harbour Bridge, which is the tallest steel bridge and is right next to the Opera House. So you have like an amazing view of both of them. And then there's also a very cool building called Brown Paper Bag, which looks like it's really crumpled. And that is the, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but that's the Dr. Zhao Chak Wink building at UTS. So it's really, you have iconic buildings.
Oh, very cool. So at least, we are not making compromises as against last year's Interspeech city. So it's very good to know. Do you have some places in mind where people could go for the best view of the city?
Yes. So for a classic view, you can go to Machorro. There's this like right next to the Sydney Opera House, and you will have a very nice view of the Opera House on one side, on the right side, and then on the left you're gonna see the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Another nice view is to take a ferry that goes to either Manly, and then if you sit on the back of the ferry, you're gonna see the Opera House from a different perspective, the Sydney Bridge, and you're also gonna see the different like the parks and so on. So that's an amazing view, very panoramic from the ferry. You can also go to Barangaroo or One Central Park building, which is also there you have a vertical garden, and there's also like a more modern view, not as iconic as having the Opera House next to you.
That sounds very nice. Now we're going to move on to some general information. Sydney is known to be the Emerald City or the Harbour City, and it is the capital of the state of New South Wales, which is the most populous area in Australia.
Yes, it's one of the top 15 most visited cities worldwide, which is crazy if you think how long it takes you to go there. So that really speaks for how incredible the city is. It has over 2,500,000 acres of nature reserves and parks, and really wherever you go, you're gonna be in the nature. You don't feel sometimes that you're in a big city. It's like 20 minutes you can be in an amazing park or reserve.
Super cool, yeah. I mean, that sounds like worth a trip alone. Like, Interspeech, very important, of course, but visit Sydney. It's what we're saying here, I guess, as well. Then also more general on Australia, right? So, I mean, I guess, of course, one knows that usually you speak English, but I think it's actually more nuanced than that. I mean, they have quite some slang on their own, and we're going to be addressing a bit of that later on as well. But I think there is also this notion, like it was a British prisoners colony, so now English is the official language, but there's also like all the different languages from the native populations there. And I guess the dynamic is also quite interesting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to say also, I mean, you mentioned that it was a British prisoner colony, and I mean, they speak English, but really when you're there, you sometimes wonder, do I really speak English? Because their accent alone is so different. It takes some time to get used to. I remember like the first week I was there, it was like, wow, I don't know if I speak English. You really question your English level there. Alone, their accent is very different, but Sydney is also a huge melting pot. You're gonna hear all kinds of languages: Mandarin, Arabic, Vietnamese, Greek. For example, Greek. There's like a huge population of Greek people there. Amazing food, by the way. But you're gonna hear a lot of Greek, which is not something you expect when you're there. So it's really Sydney is so cosmopolitan. You have all cultures put together, talking some English that you're not used to. So it's really, really, really nice to see this mix.
That's very interesting, the different languages and the mix of cultures in Australia. That is something to look forward to. Now let's talk about money. You can leave your pounds, euros, and US dollars at home, because here it's all about the Australian dollar or AUD.
Yes, you need the Australian dollars. The notes themselves are kind of cool. They're like super flashy. They have really nice colors. I remember I had like a purple one, like really nice. And they're apparently made of polymer, which is plastic basically. So they don't break. You don't have to worry. You can go swimming with them and it's gonna be fine. But they're in Australia, they're card friendly. In fact, I think you're probably not gonna need any money, any cash at all, because everything, especially in Sydney, everything is card. Like they will accept cards without problems. Visa and MasterCard, all good.
Oh, very good, yeah. That leads into the last question, probably like, how safe is Sydney? How safe is Australia in general?
So I lived in Sydney, so I can only talk about Sydney like terms of safety living there, it's completely safe. I mean, it's absolutely safe, especially by international standards. I think Sydney is really one of the safest, largest cities in the world. Australia is also very safe. I think the biggest problem, it's not going to be like violent crime or humans, but it's mostly like you have to watch out for wild nature
Yeah.
in Australia in case you want to go into the wild. But yeah, I would say that's the biggest thing you have to consider.
Yeah, very good call. And, of course, still apply common sense, right? Don't leave your bags unattended somewhere else. But just keep in mind of your belongings, but you don't need to be worried about some robbery or some other stuff like that. Yeah.
All right, let's address the elephant in the room, or should I say, the spider in the bathroom. We've all seen the viral videos of giant creatures, but if you're heading to Sydney, what's the actual reality? Are you going to be dodging snakes off the sidewalk? Let's separate the internet myths from the Sydney reality.
First of all, let's start with the big one. Yes, Sydney is home to the Sydney funnel web, which is one of the most dangerous spiders in the world. And apparently it does live in the suburbs. But I think you're still very unlikely to see one on a casual stroll in the streets or even at home. I mean, especially for people traveling there, we're gonna be in the city in Sydney. And the suburbs might be a bit different. I have to say, when I was living there, I was living in the suburbs, and really, I didn't see any wild animals walking around. So yeah, I think in the city, it's very unlikely that you have an encounter with any of those spiders. You might see some huntsman spiders, but they're like nice. Like they look big and a bit hairy, but they're nice. They're not gonna do anything. So yeah, just don't worry. I mean, they eat bugs. They actually are eating the mosquitoes that are gonna bite you. So they're actually one of like good people. Apart from the like spiders, I think another danger are kangaroos. They are a plague in Australia. You're gonna see them everywhere, and especially if you rent a car and you go into the bush, you're gonna see them running around in the crossroad, like everywhere. So they cause a lot of accidents actually because of that. So if you see a kangaroo but the first time probably you're gonna get excited, but if it's a male one, like they're extremely big, and they can be violent, and they can, for example, if you're driving, they can get into the road, they can cause an accident, or they can become violent towards you. So it's actually, they're not as friendly as you might think. The baby ones, they're super cute and friendly. So that's just, yeah. But there are also other animals, like the eastern brown snake, that is also around Sydney, not in the city, okay? But they're not hunting humans. So in general, I think those animals, so as Pascal said, like, do your research. I think if you stay in the city, you're safe. If you go into the bush or drive around Sydney, do your research. But in general, with those type of animals, they're not hunting humans. If you don't bother them, you respect their place they're living, you're going to be fine. There are many people living in Australia and living with these animals together. So it's a sign that you can make it if you respect them. I think one of the things that you will have to watch out for more than the wildlife is the beach. You definitely have to go to Bondi Beach. And when you go into the water, you have to be a bit careful, not only because of the rip tide, which can be very rough in that area, but also there are animals that can be dangerous in the sea. For example, sharks. Unfortunately, Sydney's famous for shark nets, and there have been some attacks. They're still extremely rare, but it has happened. So every year there are a couple of cases. So yeah, try to avoid swimming at dusk or dawn, because this is sort of like the dinner time for the sharks. But again, there are a lot of shark nets. They really like have a good system, so that is still very unlikely to happen. But there are also other types of animals that can be dangerous, like the blue-ringed octopus, which can be dangerous, and they live in tide pools. So yeah, never stick your hands into those tide pools. There's also blue bottles. They are look like small blue balloons floating on the water. They aren't deadly, but you're gonna get a nasty stink. So yeah, just watch out. And again, it's the same as with the wildlife. Do your research before going into the water. Try not to bother any animal that you see. If you see something, try to leave as soon as possible and just respect the nature. Also, regarding animals, there's also a animal that is most likely to actually attack you in Sydney, it's called the magpie. They are in their like swooping season in September, and these are some birds that are very protective of their nests. They might attack your head if you walk too close to their tree, so do watch out for them. But they're very cute also.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I think I can also just underline, right? Like, of course, in Australia, I have like animals that are super, super deadly and super poisonous. And that's, yeah, kind of also claim to fame for Australia. If you at least plan any hikes or any excursion out of the city, you should definitely do your research and be mindful of the risks that are involved. But if you're within the city or like with common tourist areas, you should be safe and just be mindful and aware and watch out the magpies indeed. Yeah. So coming to the weather, so Interspeech will be in September, and this is actually quite a time to come and visit, I think. So it's just the beginning of spring. It's all like down under. So the time where usually here in Europe you would have fall, there's spring in Australia. So there it should be not too cold, not too hot, actually quite some pleasant temperatures. So yeah, Monica, like, could you please give us some quick overview over what you would recommend to put in our suitcases in order to make the most of the respective weather in Australia in September?
Yes, so as you said, September, I think it's one of the best times to be there because it's not going to be too hot, too cold. The weather is just right. It's going to be like the temperature around 20 degrees, which I think it's the best temperature you can ask for when you're doing some tourism because it's really like perfect for walking around. You're not going to die of heat, but also it's not going to be too cold, especially if you're walking around. So do remember that it's still like early spring. Do pack a light jacket. I mean, winter in Sydney is also not winter like in Europe. Like it's not gonna get like, it doesn't go below degrees, like 0 degrees. But yeah, it can get chilly, especially at night. So you might still get some chilly nights. Then humidity is not very strong. So you can even pack a couple of dresses that maybe are a bit like, not like summer dresses, but maybe some like mid-season dresses. Because I think grabbing dinner by the harbor and in the area where Interspeech is, there are lots of nice cafes and restaurants. So you can, do pack some nice clothing. I think Sydney has a very vivid nightlife, so you can enjoy it after the conference.
Thank you for the interesting information. We can also keep in mind, even if it feels mild, the Aussie sun doesn't play around. The UV levels start climbing in September. So even if there's a cool breeze, you'll burn faster than you would think. So sunscreen is non-negotiable.
Absolutely, yeah. I think like the sun just burns, and don't underestimate this yet again, but you should be fine if you just put on sunscreen regularly. So next, let's brainstorm a bit together maybe of which things are important to pack, especially also in regards to Interspeech. So one thing that comes to mind readily is, of course, your poster, if you have like a poster presentation.
That has happened, yeah.
And also a USB stick if you have an oral presentation. Be sure to have plenty of backups, of course, of your files in case you need to print out the poster or like something goes missing there. Just keep that in mind.
I guess also for charging your devices, so Australia uses type 1 plug. So this is the one with the 3 flat pins. Yeah, sometimes some hotels have an adapter, but don't rely on that. And ideally, you can bring it already with you because it might be more expensive in Australia. Australia is, like, especially Sydney, it might be expensive. I think it's similar to some cities like London, but it's still rather on the high-end prices.
Yeah, traveling with the correct adapter is something very important. To buy it from your hometown, I think, is the best way to do that. And Sydney is very eco-conscious, so most conferences have water stations, so bring your usable bottle with you.
Also, the city is almost entirely cashless, so make sure that you have your phone's digital wallet set up so you can just like pay with your phone or ensure that your credit or debit card is working also abroad. Yeah, you can just grab a coffee to go basically or use the public transport with your respective card on the go.
Then also don't forget your laptop charging adapters. This would be like USB-C for modern devices or other standards for older Mac or Windows laptops.
Surprisingly, paracetamol is okay to travel with, and make sure to get like your first aid kit and be ready for your travels. And if things need to go into your checked-in luggage, make sure that you put them there and follow the airline's regulations.
As we also said, the sun can be very sunny and also very strong in Australia. So I would recommend also to get a hat for the sun or buy a nice, I don't know, typical Australian leather hat if you feel like it, right in Australia itself in Sydney. Sunglasses, of course, and sunscreen. These are quite mandatory to survive the heat.
And obviously, to prepare for the flight, do bring a neck cushion. As we already mentioned, get them cheaply before the airport because they're super expensive at airports. But also don't forget earplugs and sleepers masks because I think that's going to help you for surviving the plus 20-hour flights.
Oh yeah, and then hopefully wish you all the best for your flight itself. And if you're then just touching down, likely at Sydney Kingsford Smith Airport, that's the main international airport of Sydney, we can give you now a quick walkthrough on how to get from the airport to the conference venue itself. So from the airport itself, we prepared some 3 options for you to go to the International Convention Centre, the ICC in Sydney, in Darling Harbour.
Yeah, so the first one is the Express Lane. This is using the train, and it's also very simple. So you're going to get some nice harbor views, and you're also going to avoid the traffic, which can get a lot depending on the time. So the first step is you should follow the signs at the airport for the airport link. This is the line T8, and trains run roughly every 5 to 10 minutes. You're gonna need a Opal card. This is how it's called, and you can either buy it, you have a physical card, or you can just have it in your phone and tap on and tap off, as we already mentioned, since everything's cashless. Second step is you hop off at Central Station. The third step, from Central Station, you will have 2 choices. First is the scenic walk. So if you're not feeling too tired and want to already get some nice views, you take a 10-minute stroll through the goods line directly into the Darling Harbour, and then you're gonna be at the venue. And the other one is the light rail. When you at Central Station, you transfer to the line 1, direction Dulwich Hill, and hop off at the convention center or exhibition center stops. And you'll be dropped directly at the conference venue.
For the second way to arrive at the conference is door to door. So you could use a taxi or rideshare. For those traveling with a heavy setup or just wanting to maximize the prep time for their presentations, the best route is about 8-kilometer journey. And under normal conditions, if you don't have traffic, you're looking at like 25-minute drive. And the best drop-off tip is to let your driver know to go to 14 Darling Drive. And the best drop-off spot is the Iron Wharf Place near the Sofitel or the Zoolner Circuit at the southern end of the ICC.
And the last option, if you really want to have the full Sydney experience, you can just take a so-called water taxi. So if you're staying near the Circular Quay, close to the conference venue, you could just go there by boat. So you can actually take a water taxi or a ferry boat to Darling Harbour, and you disembark at the stop Barangaroo Wharf or Pyrmont Bay Wharf, and it's just a short walk along the water to the venue from these jetties. So yeah, we want to make sure that your journey is as seamless as possible, so you'll find all the details that we just talked about in the podcast description below.
And if you want to go to your hotel, make sure that you keep these tips in mind. Check the travel cost reimbursement policy from your university and check if booking as a group might save you some money or booking directly through the hotel's website. These are like some of the tips that you could keep in mind while you're booking accommodation.
And finally, it's time for my favorite topic here in these preparation sections, the food. Yeah, like from what I remember when I was back in Australia, like are 2 particularities. One is I think there's a little something called Vegemite, or which is like quite similar if you're from the UK to the Marmite that you have there. It's a yeast extract based paste spread for the bread. It's quite savory. It's a bit meat-like, I would say, from the taste. But yeah, like Vegemite is something that you will probably only get in Australia, and that's quite typical there for breakfast, I guess.
With butter, they have bread, butter, and Vegemite.
Bread, butter, and Vegemite. So like it's some very typical thing that you just get like bread, butter, and Vegemite, and you're good to go. That's the Aussie way to go. And the other thing is that Australians really love their barbecue. So I remember that in the cities, you really had some public barbecue spots where you could just bring your meat or your vegetables, whatever you wanted to barbecue. And yeah, you would just have an electronic barbecue set up and press a button, it heats up, you put your stuff on, you barbecue it, you're a decent person and tidy up after yourself, of course, and then you're good to go. It's really like a very nice and open culture where everyone just hangs out in the park together and does a barbecue. And very Australian also in that line is what I did actually back then, just to like try some kangaroo sausage. So that's also something you can actually eat. As Monica said, they can be a bit of a pest actually in Australia. So at least they are turned into sausages or some other.
Yeah, you can see it in the supermarkets. It's like here in Germany, you go to the supermarket and you see like pork meat, chicken meat, and there you see also kangaroo meat. So you can even buy it yourself. And if you have a kitchen where you're staying, you can cook a kangaroo stick for you. But there's also kangaroo jerky and kangaroo burgers, and they're everywhere. So we eat them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I mean, if you're eating meat and if you do this, it's some interesting thing to try. It's not disgusting or anything. It's just some cool taste to try out yourselves. So let's see if they have something prepared like that at Interspeech itself.
That's very interesting. Like, how does it taste like?
It's like red meat. So I have to say, when I had the kangaroo burger, I couldn't tell the difference between kangaroo meat and like cow meat. Like for me, I don't know. I'm not an expert here, so I couldn't tell the difference.
I would say it tastes a bit like game, like if you eat deer or some comparable, like it's a bit more like, I don't know, sturdy, not really chewy, but it is having a very tight consistency, I would say. Yeah. See, like if you get the opportunity, you can try it out, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, I think another thing that you're gonna see everywhere, and they actually can do very good, is fish and chips. They're obsessed with fish and chips. Don't know why, but yeah, you're gonna see them everywhere, and do try them. They're very tasty. And another very tasty, typical Aussie food is Tim Tams. These are some chocolate bars. You can find them anywhere, so especially at supermarkets. I have to say, I mean, they are tasty, but I cannot tell you exactly why they're like very, very special. But if you like chocolate, do try them. I think people usually have them with coffee because they're also obsessed with coffee. They have really good coffee. So yeah, have a coffee, a flat white, as they have it in Australia, with a Tim Tam.
Does it taste like Bounty or Mars bar, or what kind of bar?
I think they have different Tim Tams. So it depends on, so I think there's like the plain chocolate one, and I think that's gonna taste like a Bounty. And then, yeah, so Tim Tams, apparently the way they eat it is you bite, so it's like a chocolate bar, and you can have different tastes. So it's like the plain chocolate one, but there's also like white chocolate and so on. So you bite, so if I understand correctly, is you bite on the top and on the bottom, and then you put it in the coffee and you use it as a straw. I have to say, I never saw that when I was there, but feel free to try it, and I guess you will become a real Aussie.
Truly, absolutely. And one thing I also remember for drinks was something called lemon, lime, and bitters. So it's some non-alcoholic drink based on lemonade, basically, but with a bit of bitter stuff. So it's not as crazy sweet as regular lemonade. And was also some very typical thing that I associate with Australia. I liked it a lot. Like they have also quite some pub culture there. So just go to the pub, and if you're not into alcohol, that's something you can legally drink very genuinely and still not be like shamed away by the Australian inhabitants there. Yeah.
Yeah, as Pascal said, they have a big pop culture, and if you're into alcohol, try Victoria Bitter. They call it their vitamin B. Apparently, they say that it's healthy. I don't know. So yeah, do try it. Some of their local beers. There's something called fairy bread. I have to say, when I was there, I didn't try it, but I saw Aussies having that. So it's white bread with butter and thousands of sprinkles. And this is really something they have at parties, at children parties, and they continue throughout like their whole lives. So if you're feeling adventurous, try it. For me, it was weirder than having kangaroo, so I didn't have it. But if you do let me know how it tastes.
A quick question. Is it like Pop-Tarts?
I haven't had Pop-Tarts, so I cannot say it. It's like normal white bread. Didn't look that tasty.
Fair enough.
Pop food.
I don't know these things, actually, I think.
Yeah, I also don't know. I mean, I remember at Pops I was having some meat pies. They're also obsessed with meat pies, and I haven't tried other things like vanilla slice. This apparently is a custard-filled pastry, often called the snot block. So these are some typical Pop meals. Because I mean, if you're having a lot of beer, you should eat something, and something fried and savory, I think, is always the best way to go. At the beginning of the podcast, we also mentioned that it is extremely cosmopolitan. So you're also going to have very good options of international food. I remember I had amazing gyros there. I'm not sure if they were legit, but they were amazing. I remember I was coming back every time to eat them again because they're really good. So because of all the cultures that went to Sydney, they also brought their food. So you can go and try different stuff.
That sounds very tasty. Now, let's discuss souvenirs. Don't forget to bring some of these foods with you. For example, there is kangaroo jerky, and we mentioned the Tim Tams. You could also bring some with you home. And there are Australia-shaped fridge magnets or boomerangs, which is very abundant in like Australian souvenir shops.
Yeah, and I also back then got the nice koala plushie, which is still on my desk. And they also had some really nice t-shirts that I got myself. So I'm sure that you can find some memorable stuff that are typically Australian looking.
And don't forget to do some fun activities. For example, seeing the local wildlife like koalas and kangaroos, which was mentioned earlier that you will see the kangaroos everywhere. And don't forget to take a picture in front of the Sydney Opera House and the Sydney Harbour Bridge. There's also the Interspeech social activities. Make sure to join those when you can.
And also regarding activities, there are very nice places to visit around Sydney. One of them would be Manly Beach. I really, really recommend you to go there. And Bondi Beach, which is very famous. A bit more crowded than Manly, but also equally beautiful. One tip for everyone. In Sydney, public transport is a bit expensive, but if you arrive on Sunday before the conference starts or even earlier, remember on Sundays, there's like maximum price that you pay for the public transport. So you pay a maximum of $9 and you can travel anywhere. So you could use the Sunday to do a small excursion in Sydney. You could even use the public transport to reach the Blue Mountains, which are some mountains very close to Sydney. They're also beautiful. Usually on a normal day, you will probably pay like $20 to $30 to visit them, but on Sunday, it's only $9. Also, you can take the ferry. The ferry there, it also works like a public transport. You can pay $9 on Sunday, go to Manly Beach, go to other islands, and really visit the surroundings. So if you arrive before Sunday or directly on Sunday, go out and enjoy this sort of discount to visit the city.
Very cool. Very good opportunity, I guess, to make use of that. Don't forget to have some fun. Don't forget to have also some free time. And as we also said, there's going to be quite some jet lag involved. So if possible, maybe arrive a bit earlier to adapt and also have some fun in Australia itself. So in our last section, we want to see if we can prepare you a little bit for the Australian slang. It's just like something you just have to have the mindset that there might be some phrases that you don't understand readily, but you just need some getting into the vibe and the feeling, and then you should be fine. One of my favorite phrases that I heard in Australia is actually "no worries, mate," which is very cool. Like I like this very chill attitude toward life and stuff. This is a very common expression, so they always say like "no worries, mate." So it was my favorite there. There's also like Macca's to McDonald's, which is good if you want to know your way to some random fast food chain restaurant. Why would you do that if you have other nice and tasty restaurants? But hey, if you hear someone talk about Macca's, that should be McDonald's. And if you're at the hotel and they're asking you about a brekkie, that is likely that they are referring to breakfast or breakfast options. These are maybe the most essential ones. We will also do some social media activity on X and LinkedIn and provide you quite some additional phrases there. So keep an eye out for these.
Other phrases that I actually heard a lot would be "she'll be apples." Extremely weird. I don't know. But it means all good. So similar to "no worries." Yeah, you're going to hear it. Don't think they're talking about apples. And then the famous "G'day." I don't know if I pronounced it correctly. I think one thing that Pascal also mentioned is that they're very chill and relaxed. So it's a very laid back culture. So what they usually tend to do is they shorten everything. So, it's like very laid back. So for example, instead of saying avocado, because that's very long, they say avo. You're going to hear a lot of those examples. You're going to get used to them. Don't be scared if you hear some weird words. I think it's still very fun to learn some words.
Yeah, and I guess that's almost the end of the episode. Thanks so much, Monica, for coming over and sharing your experiences there. And I hope that we could prepare your listeners a bit more for the awesome time you're going to be having at Interspeech. Fingers crossed. Thanks also, Mohammed, for co-hosting.
Thanks a lot for having me. I'm looking forward to hearing everyone's experience. If we see each other at Interspeech, let's have a brief talk about your experiences. I'm happy to meet you there.
Thank you for listening to us today. We hope you had some fun and learned a thing or two about Sydney and Australian culture. We are very much looking forward to seeing all of you at Interspeech. Stay tuned for the next episode of Speech Pitch, as we might interview you on the premise during the Interspeech. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to our podcast, and also follow Iskisak on X and LinkedIn, where we share the latest news with you.
Speech pitch by Iska Sak.